Good afternoon. It is January 2nd, 2025. I'm going to share some of these news that's been going on. The two terrible attacks on New Year's Day and some of these weird connections. The first one, I have the article up here. It's Cops Make Chilling Connection Between New Orleans Terrorist and Trump Hotel Cybertruck Bomber. The man responsible for the Cybertruck explosion outside Trump International Hotel served at the same military base as the New Orleans terrorist, according to a report. Law enforcement officers raided a home belonging to a 37-year-old man from Colorado Springs on Wednesday night. I'm in Colorado Springs. There's a lot of military bases here. The suspect has a military background and served at the same base as Shamsud Din Jabbar, who fatally ran down 15 people in a rented car in New Orleans in the early hours of New Year's Day. The shock revelation comes hours after police in Las Vegas confirmed they were exploring any potential links between the two men. The Cybertruck suspect had several addresses in Colorado Springs linked to his name, and late on Wednesday night, the FBI arrived at a townhouse complex associated with him. The publication reported neighbors were escorted away from the complex. Police had assured the public they do not suspect there is any ongoing threat to the community. The Colorado man is suspected of hiring the Elon Musk-owned Cybertruck in Colorado and driving across the border on Wednesday morning. This picture right here is Shamsud Din Jabbar, who fatally ran down 15 people in a rented car in New Orleans. So, in a press conference, Sheriff Kevin McHale said the car arrived in Las Vegas at 7:30 a.m. The explosion took place at 8:40 a.m. in the valet area outside the hotel. The Tesla Cybertruck driver was the sole fatality, and authorities largely credit Musk's hulking truck from preventing further damage because it was able to contain much of the explosion. According to the publication, officers wearing tactical gear arrived in armored vehicles to assess his Colorado Springs property. At the scene of the explosion, charred fireworks, gas canisters, and camping fuel were found in the bed of the truck when authorities were finally able to put out the fire. Hours earlier in New Orleans, Shamsud Din Jabbar, 42, drove an electric vehicle into crowds, killing 50 pedestrians and injuring dozens more. These are the pictures. Law enforcement sources have since revealed the cars used in both attacks were rented through Turo, and they were both EVs, prompting concerns they are linked. Police revealed on Wednesday afternoon that they are currently investigating potential links and have not ruled anything out yet. A spokesperson for Turo later issued a statement describing the company's heartbreak by the violence perpetrated in New Orleans and Las Vegas. Their prayers are with the families and victims. So, here it says, we do not believe that either renter involved in the Las Vegas and New Orleans attacks had a criminal background that would have identified them as a security threat. And I'm going to go to this. Candace Owens had originally said earlier today, or maybe yesterday or this morning, the New Orleans terrorist and the guy who blew up the Tesla truck both had served at the same Army base. Given what we know about the history of sadistic government programs in our military, this brings forth more questions than answers. Yes, and the fact that they rented their vehicles from the same place is odd, to say the least, but I don't believe in coincidence. But here we go. And Matthew Lavasberger, the Colorado resident, the former Army Green Beret, he's the one that had the Cybertruck. We have these two military guys, and he just sat there and allowed himself to be killed. Now, we all know some, and they served in Afghanistan apparently. Could be PTSD. There's a lot of soldiers that came back from these terrible wars since 9/11, and they took their own lives. So I don't know, but I'm not sure why they would go through all of that to do that. Usually they just took their lives by themselves. And as you saw what Candace said, given what we know about the history of sadistic government programs in our military, this brings forth more questions than answers. The past experiments on military members, mostly without their knowledge, the MK Ultra, terrible things they did there, the experiments and things they did there that were murderous and evil through the CIA. And I was just listening to a podcast from Joe Rogan on that. He was interviewing an author named Tom O'Neill who wrote a book called Chaos, and Candace had talked about it on one of her shows. I haven't read it, but I listened to the journalist Tom O'Neill who wrote that book, and it was very disturbing. And they have these ways of drugging them with LSD, these people that they would lure in, and through this place that supposedly was for these men could go and be with prostitutes and all that. And in any case, they drugged them. They made them so that afterwards they didn't remember anything that happened. They didn't remember what they did. And none of them had any records either. None of them were known to be killers or have any bad backgrounds. And they're saying here that they didn't have any, they had no criminal background, though it have identified them as a security threat. They're still exploring how the explosives were detonated, but sources with knowledge of the investigation have expressed that it was likely controlled by the driver, at least in the second instance. Officers have also considered the driver may have purposely chosen to use a car owned by Musk to send a message given Musk's newfound friendship with President-elect Donald Trump, which is what I said yesterday, that this was a message, okay? The $80,000 car, good grief, was seen in a fire. I mean, so you're going to spend all this money on these EVs to make a message. I suppose these people could just be mentally not well, but you can't have been in the military without having a background check on that kind of stuff, psychological tests and all that. You can't just. So something isn't right there, but I think what Candace is talking about is that history of what happened to people. These are just on military History of experiments conducted on military members without their knowledge at military bases includes several notable instances. Edgewood Arsenal, from 1948 to 1975, the U.S. Army Chemical Corps conducted classified human subject research at Edgewood's Arsenal in Maryland. These experiments involved exposing about 6,720 soldiers to over 250 different chemicals to evaluate the impact of low-dose chemical warfare agents on military personnel. Some of these studies were part of the Medical Research Volunteer Program 1956-75 and focused on psychochemical warfare driven by intelligence requirements and the need for new interrogation techniques. Project Bluebird, this project, which began in 1952, aimed to get control of an individual to the point where he will do our bidding against his will and even against fundamental laws of nature, such as self-preservation. Well, that project right there is just plain evil. It's satanic. It's horrible to put somebody, taking away somebody's will is evil. It's of the evil one. But let's go on. Sorry, my Orthodox Christian side is bothered by that. And so anyway, researchers experimented with hypnosis, forced addiction, and withdrawal, and psychoactive substances like LSD, heroin, marijuana, cocaine, PCP, mescaline, and ether. Over 7,000 U.S. military personnel were dosed with LSD without their knowledge or consent at Edgewood Arsenal. And that's not part of MK Ultra's program either. I mean, how many things were going on? And at the same kind of time, what was going on here? Why would they... I mean, at this point, the war was over. It was a terrible... World War II was a terrible war. So many millions died. And why would you do that? Why would you go to these... are you were expecting to do another war? I don't know, but I feel like this is very not good. But anyway... Fort Detrick, during World War II, Fort Detrick in Maryland was the headquarters for U.S. biological warfare experiments. Operation Whitecoat involved the injection of infectious agents into military forces to observe their effects. These experiments were part of broader efforts to understand the impact of biological and chemical warfare agents on human subjects. And they also did a lot of things on military men. Even during, my son read a book called GI Guinea Pigs, and it talks about how they were at the Marshall Islands, and they practiced this atomic bomb, and they were sitting out there in the water, in the ship, on their ship, not far from this explosion, and they didn't tell them anything. I think they've been doing this for, as you can see, decades, because, military members apparently are just expendable. They don't really mean anything. But how many times have we said it's not ethical to do such experiments on humans? That's why we use animals. I mean, I'm not crazy about animals, but it's better than humans, right? Why would they do that then? If it's not supposed to be being on people. Yeah, some people can volunteer to do trials of, for certain things. People do that sometimes for money and all that, but without their knowledge and all that, I mean, the Tuskegee experiments, that's another thing. There was a lot of different things. Just evil. But you wonder, they say they didn't do it anymore, but how do we know that they're not still doing it? How do we know that? How would we just assume? You see, that's always I assume. You hear these things, they all just must be done. It must be over. It must be over because nobody is talking about it. Sorry. They figured it came out and, well, it's okay now. It's not happening. There's no guarantee that it's not. So, when you learn all these things, you suspect a lot of stuff. When you see these type of news stories, you always want to dig deeper and say what's really going on. The surface ones are like, oh, it's sorry, it's terrorists and all that. And but both men were military. And so I wonder if this story is going to continue or if it's just going to fall away to the wayside. Sorry, as it seems to do. You just forget about it in a couple days and you never get to see what happens at the end unless you're like one of those people that just doggedly follows these things. But anyway, there's a real issue here with these kind of things. And I'm just thinking of it now because I've been watching all this stuff on that. So I'm sharing it with you, wondering if these two men had a type of Project Bluebird done to them, or an MK Ultra newer name for it now. Who knows? I wouldn't put past them. I mean, there is no accountability for the CIA and other certain groups doing these things. They get away with stuff all the time. Anyway, I just wanted to share that. If anything else comes up on this, I'll try to follow and see. Anyway, thanks for watching. Please follow my channel if you haven't already. Subscribe to my channel if you're on YouTube. Follow my channel on Rumble. Like my videos, share my channel on Rumble and maybe YouTube. And I'm mostly on Rumble. But anyway, if you could, please follow my channel, share my videos, share my channel, as I said. And I thank you for watching. And I always appreciate any feedback you have on any of these stories, of your own thoughts on this. And I hope you're having a good afternoon. And until next time.